Penny for your thoughts. Okay, number 7. Greatest films of all time. Taxi Driver, released 1976. 200th birthday of the United States. Rah, rah, this is Taxi Driver. Is this that kind of film? Directed by Martin Scorsese. This is the third Scorsese on the list. Previously, Raging Bull and Goodfellas, starring Robert De Niro, of course, Sybil Shepherd, Jodie Foster, Harvey Keitel, Albert Brooks, Peter Boyle. Look at Peter Boyle's filmography, especially in the 70s. Interesting filmography. Wasn't afraid to take on a part. So, or maybe he couldn't afford to say no to an interesting part. Written by Paul Schrader. So Paul Schrader grew up part of the Calvinist Christian Reformed Church. Very religious upbringing. Didn't see his first film until he was 17. Snuck out, saw a movie. Wasn't that impressed with it. Didn't seek out another movie thereafter for quite a while. Went to school for philosophy and theology. Was it about this close? Maybe that close? To becoming a minister. But didn't do that. Switched gears and went to UCLA. Took film studies. Then he was encouraged by the critic, Pauline Kael, to become a film critic. So, quick turnaround there from never seeing a movie to criticizing yours. Then he wrote a film with his brother, The Accuser, which was directed by Sidney Pollack, director of 12 Angry Men on this list. Obsession, directed by De Palma, by himself, not with his brother. And then he did a draft of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, of course, Spielberg. So Spielberg, yeah, Paul Schrader is definitely not Spielberg's tempo, if you will. And then De Palma introduced him to Scorsese. So he got the film brats of the 70s. He got passed around like a joint until he ended up with his dance partner, Martin Scorsese. So, wrote this screenplay based on the diaries of Arthur Bremer. Arthur Bremer was a man who shot George Wallace, 1972. Initially, he planned on shooting Nixon. Very fascinated, obsessed with Nixon. Was going to shoot him. Realized it wasn't really feasible, so he defaulted. We all do to our backup choice, George Wallace. Took out some books of the library and researched other assassins. Saran, who killed Bobby Kennedy, posed as a volunteer on George Wallace's campaign. Followed him around on the campaign trail. Opportunity came along to pretend to shake hands with him and shot him and a couple other people. Paralyzed George Wallace for life. He goes into jail, and then they publish diaries, and then Paul Schrader reads them, and then he writes Taxi Driver. Around the time, Paul Schrader was basically living the life of Taxi Driver. He was alone. I think he had recently been divorced, addicted to pornography, and so he channels pretty much himself through Arthur Brenner to create Travis Bickle, and then just throws on the possibly Vietnam veteran to make it resonate a little bit more with the current affairs. So, cinematography for this film is done by Michael Chapman. Michael Chapman, I mentioned in the Raging Bull video, cinematographer on that film as well. He also was a camera operator on The Godfather. We haven't got to that film yet, have we? And he was camera operator on Jaws. So on this list, the score, of course, this is the final score by Bernard Herrmann, great composer, mostly known for the scores he composed for Alfred Hitchcock. I always say Alfred. Sorry. So yeah, this film, of course, De Niro's in it, So De Niro goes method, gets a license, drives a cab for real, loses a bunch of weight, listens to Arthur Bremer's diaries on tape, book on tape. And then Jodie Foster, I think, was about 12 at the time of casting this film. She had to do psychological testing to make sure she was, well enough to take on this part. Jodie Foster's part, Paul Schrader kind of waffles around on his story, but apparently based on a real prostitute that he may or may not have hooked up with or taken home, depending on what his version of the story is and his intentions. He just wanted to save her, just like Travis Bickle. So, two types of people in this world. People that watch Taxi Driver and say, Travis Bickle is cool, I want to be like him. The type of people who watch this film and are disgusted. It's art. It's allowed to do that. Maybe it should do that. Problem with that is there are people that watch this film, edgelord film, get inspired by it. There's people like John Hinckley Jr. who watch this film and get inspired by it and get obsessed with Jodie Foster and stalk Jodie Foster, and then they attempt to assassinate Ronald Reagan because they want to be like Travis Bickle and they want to impress Jodie Foster. Travis Bickle, I believe on AFI, is under the list of villains. He's a bad guy, not a nice guy, racist guy, not a good guy. Takes a girl to a porno on a date. Not cool. Film, I don't know, does it set out and say, not cool? This guy, not cool. Anyways, enough for that rank. It is number 7 on this list. According to Metacritic, just made the top 100. It is number 98. AFI's 98 list, it is number 47. And then in 2007, it is number 52. Not in the IMDb top 100. So we haven't yet had a film, and we're all the way up to 7, that is on all of these lists. BFI list in 2012, it was number 31 on the critics list, number 5 on the directors list, and in 2022, 29 on the critics list, number 12 on the directors list. So, you made it to this part. What do you think? You like Travis Bickle? Is this Scorsese's best film? Because I'll tell you right now, this is the last Scorsese on the list. It was the highest ranked. Therefore, by that definition, it should be the best. I prefer Raging Bull. What about you? Maybe you like The Departed. Maybe you like New York, New York. Comment, tell me, like, subscribe.